This channel has dedicated numerous videos highlighting the careers and accomplishments of German submarine commanders. There are, of course, submarine commanders from other countries that are also deserving of this attention. One such country is Italy. We've already dedicated a video to one notable Italian submarine commander, Angelo Parona, which we urge you to watch when you can. In this video, we turn to another notable Italian commander, Romolo Polacchini, the man who succeeded Parona as commander of Italy's submarine base in German-occupied France during World War II. Here then are the life and times of Romolo Polacchini. Polacchini was born on the 20th of May 1897 in La Spezia. It so happens that the port of La Spezia, which lies on the Ligurian Sea and located midway between Genoa and Pisa, was a major Italian naval base. Polacchini came from a family with a strong naval background. It's therefore no surprise that he entered the Italian Naval Academy in Livorno in 1911, aged 14. He graduated 3 years later in June 1914 as an ensign. Polacchini's first assignment was on the protected cruiser, Etna. World War I broke out within weeks of his graduation, during which he would serve on the battleships Dante Alighieri and Andrea Doria. It was during World War I that he was awarded his first War Merit Cross. Polacchini's first experience with submarines came in 1918 when, as a sub-lieutenant, he became the executive officer on board the submarine H-3. He undertook a few missions in the Adriatic Sea with that submarine, remaining with the Submarine Corps after World War I ended. His first command of a submarine came in 1924, in which he was promoted to helm the submarine N3. He would serve as commander of the submarine at La Maddalena Naval Base in Sardinia, after which he was made commander of another submarine, H1, followed by the coastal torpedo boat 69 PN, in quick succession. As with any rising naval star, Romolo Polacchini enjoyed further promotions within the Italian Navy. By 1926, he was promoted to lieutenant commander, being given command of the mine-laying submarine X-2. By 1929, was in command of another submarine, this time the F-19, followed by 2 years at the helm of yet another sub, the Tito Sperry. What all of this shows was a naval officer who was clearly respected by his naval command. He was even awarded the title of Officer of the Order of Ismail by King Fuad I of Egypt in 1931. A year later, Polacchini was promoted to commander, and for the next few years he commanded a series of light cruisers and, of course, submarines, including being in charge of Italy's Taranto submarine group. He even took part in clandestine naval missions during the Spanish Civil War on the part of the fascist forces of General Franco. By that time, Italy's fascist leader Benito Mussolini had been in power for more than 15 years, and so Italy obviously sided with the fascists in Spain. So too did Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany, which also got actively involved in Spain's bloody civil war. Officers like Polacchini had no choice but to get involved in the overseas adventures of fascist Italy. By the time the Second World War broke out, Polacchini had already been the commander of the naval base in Venice for 3 years. Italy entered the war on the side of Nazi Germany less than a year later, and so Polacchini was given command of the light cruiser Luigi Cadorna. While commander of the vessel, he was awarded a War Cross for Military Valor for his actions during the Battle of Calabria. He would then be made head of the High Command in Brindisi, the port on the southeastern tip, or the right heel of the so-called boot that is Italy. Brindisi was at the center of Italian naval operations during Italy's war with Greece, a conflict that took place between 1940 and 1941. Polacchini would then switch to take command of the submarine school in Pola, in what is today the port of Pula in Croatia. Yet another promotion arose when the aforementioned Angelo Parona was relieved of his command of the Atlantic submarine base. Polacchini would be the man to take over as commander, although he had already served time as chief of staff at said base. That submarine base for Italy's operations in the Atlantic Ocean was known as BETASOM, and located in the city of Bordeaux, in what was then German-occupied France. The Italian submarines were there to help the German U-boats in their various operations in what was dubbed the Battle of the Atlantic. Polacchini, by then a rear admiral, officially took over command of the BETASOM submarine base on September 18, 1941. It should be said that, until that time, Italy's submarines had hardly seen much glory. In fact, it's very probable that Parona was replaced precisely because, although he was admired by the Germans, it was clear that Italian submarines were not succeeding under his command. Furthermore, Parona had proven to be a very divisive leader, being despised by many submarine commanders at the base for being authoritarian and openly humiliating officers when it suited him. He wasn't liked either by some of the admirals serving in Italy's highest naval command, the Submarine, in Rome. They thought Parona was wrong for the job and far too eager to please the Germans. To his credit, Parona had instituted some very important changes by late 1940 regarding how officers were trained, as well as the design of Italy's submarines. But it was a question of too little, too late for Parona, and so he was packed off back to Italy. Romolo Polacchini's command at the BETASOM base, on the other hand, was a much bigger success. Italian submarines experienced many more successful hits than before. This included the active role of Italian in Operation Neuland, in which German and Italian submarines wreaked havoc on Allied shipping in the Caribbean Sea, particularly against British oil tankers and vessels carrying aluminum supplies for the United States. The increased success and prestige of Italy's submarines at the BETASOM base in Bordeaux resulted in Polacchini being awarded the highly prestigious Knight's Cross of the Military Order of Savoy by Italy. He was also awarded the Iron Cross First Class and Second Class by Germany, in particular for the role of Italy's submarines during Operation Neuland. Even though he was a successful and generally well-liked commander at BETASOM, Polacchini was nevertheless called back to Italy on December 29, 1942. It's probable that he had annoyed the Italian high command with his criticism of submarine commander Enzo Grossi, who had sunk 2 American cruisers earlier that year. Like Parona before him, Polacchini didn't always know how to win at naval politics. Such is the nature of navies the world over. Polacchini commenced 1943 as commander of the Naval Command in Palermo, Sicily, in which he oversaw the safe passage of Italian supply convoys to North Africa during the country's campaign in Tunisia. These efforts resulted in Palermo being heavily bombed by the Allies, but Polacchini persevered and most of the supply ships got to North Africa safely. He was awarded a Silver Medal of Military Valor for his tenacious command of operations at Palermo. Things took an interesting turn when Polacchini was appointed commander of the Naval Command at Livorno in June 1943. Shortly thereafter, Italy signed the Armistice of Cassabile with the Allies. As far as Polacchini was concerned, the Germans, who still had a strong presence in Italy, were now the enemies. As such, Polacchini gave repeated orders to his naval officers that German offensive actions be resisted at all costs. However, Italy was a financially and logistically exhausted country, and the Germans, now the invaders in Italy, were gaining footholds throughout the country. Polacchini's men were soon hopelessly ill-equipped to fight the Germans, and so he ordered his men to save themselves. Polacchini narrowly escaped capture by a German unit sent to his house, and hid in the house of friends in the nearby town of Castiglioncello in Tuscany. He would eventually join his family in Venice in January of 1944. In a somewhat surprising twist, Polacchini would take a formal oath as an officer to uphold the Italian Social Republic, which was a puppet government of the Nazis in northern Italy. But it was all a ruse by Polacchini because he was secretly working at the same time with an anti-fascist partisan group, the Northern Italy National Liberation Committee. He was arrested on August 8, 1944, by the fascists and imprisoned in Venice for aiding what the fascists called the subversive partisan group. Polacchini remained in prison for 5 months, but Italian fascism was soon crushed in its entirety by the Allies. Mussolini was dead, as was Hitler, and so too the end of World War II. He immediately retook command of the Navy on May 6, 1945, being promoted to Vice Admiral in May 1946. However, by 1950, Polacchini was suffering from severe lung problems due to his time spent in prison. He left active service due to his health issues and honorably discharged. Even so, he was still promoted to full admiral in June 1958. Polacchini lived out the rest of his days in the iconic Lido area of Venice, where he died from lung complications on October 16, 1968. There is no denying that Romolo Polacchini was a remarkable man. Not only was he an outstanding naval officer and submarine commander, but his anti-fascist actions at the end of World War II showed that he was also a man of conviction when it counted. In 2021, his grandson, Marcello Polacchini, would have this to write about his grandfather and the legacy of the sea within the family. The Italian Navy has represented a very important part of my life. My father, Vittorio, and my grandfather, Romolo, were 2 admirals, and my great-grandfather Vittorio served in the Royal Navy as a captain. The sea is part of my DNA, and they left me as a legacy an immense love for the sea. Marcello goes on to write about how Romolo Polacchini was always a soldier loyal to his homeland and to the Royal Navy, which he served for 35 years, always demonstrating correctness, humanity, and moral integrity, combined with honesty and great courage. The words of his grandson are a fitting homage to the supremely talented naval officer and submarine commander that was Romolo Polacchini.